Hey, how you doing? Anthony Ferraro here at Create Sci-Fi. Today we're in the shop and we're going to have a lot of fun with a DIY adult arts and crafts project. We're going to make a lightsaber flask. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think I have a pretty good idea how to do this. We're going to make it out of these aluminum beer cans. I'm sure you can figure out what brand these are, right? So what you're looking for is the thinnest aluminum cans that you can find. And we're going to take these cans and we're going to cut them and shape them into a DIY flask. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So, without further ado, let's get to work on these.
All right, we're going to jump right in with the sanding. I found this neat like rubber palm sander that you put the loop discs on. I'm really enjoying using this thing. So first thing I'm going to do is sand off all this paint. A little bit of work by hand. Probably could use the floppy disk on a grinder wheel, but this was fine. It was coming off pretty easily. And now there's these pits in there that were too deep for the palm sander. So I just have this little wire wheel on my Dremel tool, and I'm just going to get in there. And this makes pretty quick work of these. So I go pretty quickly through those. And you know, pretty straightforward. Again, you know, this is Star Wars universe, right? So you don't have to be too delicate. We're going to rough everything up anyway. So now I'm just taking a pass with a finer grit, and yeah, those are looking pretty cool, actually. So now just wash them out, let them dry. So now I'm just putting some painter's tape on here to help me guide my cuts, and also to kind of just get something to aim for. I want to make a straight line by hand. I'm usually not good at that. So I find putting a piece of tape to guide you is always a good way to go. And always remember your safety goggles. You don't want aluminum in your eyeballs. All right, so now I just have the cutting wheel on here now, and I'm just cutting the pieces of aluminum that I'm going to need to assemble the saber. This piece I'm cutting off is going to be the cap. And the tricky part here was to make sure that it's set right while being attached to the bottle cap. So now I'm measuring here because I want to make this little slope. I'm not sure what part of the lightsaber you would call this, but it's visually, it's a cue. It reminds you of the original saber. So again, I use the tape technique to make sure that I cut those lines straight and even. And now I'm cutting off the top of this aluminum bottle, and that's going to be that little piece inside the top of the saber, where I guess the actual saber comes out of. And off camera, I'm going to spray paint that black. And now I'm just sort of laying everything out, and it's looking pretty good. So now, you know, there's sharp edges and it's a little uneven, so I'm just going to take a piece of sandpaper and just sand down these edges so they're not sharp. And now I just take my Dremel and I just further smooth out everything. So now I'm putting a hole in the top of the cap, and I'm going to connect the bottle cap with the cap that we cut from the bottom of the other bottle. Makes sense? So I glued a nut in there because what I want to do is put an eye bolt to keep everything together, and then that's what's going to hang from the belt. I want to make sure there's a good connection because with the liquid in there, it'll be a little heavy. So now I test fit this eye bolt, and it's making a little sandwich out of the cap, and that feels secure. So now the whole thing, when it's dangling off the belt, will be secure. I got this little bottle top, like I said, that I painted black off camera. I'm going to glue that in. So I have some 5-minute epoxy. From what I read, the 5-minute epoxy, the Gorilla Glue, is safe to use with a food container. Again, I'm a guy on the internet. Make sure you do your own research and use the glue that you're comfortable with. I can't recommend what glues you use on this, but like I said, the research I did, the Gorilla Glue and actually the hot glue are okay. So now I'm mixing up another batch of 5-minute epoxy, and this is going to be to connect the top of the saber to the bottle, and this is just going to be glued on there. The hardest part about this was just lining it up just right, and you just got to hold it for just about a minute or two while the glue sets, and then I put that aside. So now I'm just filling this top, like I said, with the hot glue, just because I want to make a nice seal. And again, there's going to be liquids in there for drinking, so I just wanted to make sure that there was a good seal of the hot glue, which like I said, from what I read, is food safe. So now I wash that all out and let that dry. A lot of dishwashing in this build. So now I just test it to make sure that it works, and everything seems to be working fine. So now I'm taking the bottle cap and I'm cutting out circles that are going to be the faux buttons on this lightsaber. So this is just a quick and easy way to get a nice round button. So I cut some out of the red, that's going to be the interior of the button, and I make a little sandwich out of this, and I'm going to glue this on the side. Now, I'm sharpening the knife. Whenever you're cutting foam, you want to have a really, really sharp knife so you don't get burrs on the foam and you get a nice clean cut. So now I'm going to create the little side panel. And again, these are all sort of subconscious things that, I think I remember from a lightsaber and looking at images. So we're just trying to evoke a lightsaber, if you will. So now I'm cutting just these slits in this piece of foam, and I'm going to hit it with a heat gun. And what that's going to do is it's going to open it up, and it's going to make it look like it's some sort of functional plastic piece. So now I'm taking actually a leather tool for cutting holes like in your belt, and I'm going to make buttons with this. So I'm cutting out a hole here, and then with the same tool, I'm cutting out colored pieces of foam that I'm going to replace with the ones that I just cut out, just to give it sort of the illusion of some sort of button panel. And yeah, that looks fun. That looks cool. Again, walking by at a distance, at a glance, it'll look like some sort of functioning part of the saber. So now we're cutting out these hand grip strips. Originally, I think in the first lightsaber, these were actual windshield wiper blades. For this, I'm just going to cut it out of craft foam. So I need to space these out evenly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a template with some tape, so that I have something to aim for. So now I just take a piece of, this is paper tape. It's not painter's tape, but painter's tape would work. And I'm just making sure to make equal distant lines so that when we put this feature on, it will look uniform. It won't look all haphazard. So what I've done is cut it into two pieces, and I'm going to use the bottom piece as a spacer so that they're all the same distance from the bottom, and then the same thing with the top, and then between those pieces I'll be able to line everything up nicely. Also, I should mention, so I put a piece of tape over the seam, so that way when I glue it down, it's not going to fuse together that top part that's supposed to unscrew. So now I take care to put these on straight and to aim for those lines that I measured out. And yeah, I mean, that worked. It was a pretty simple solution. I always try to do things simply. So now I'm just going to take some super glue and I'm going to put on these visual components. Again, this panel, it's some sort of switch, the button. And then now I'm going to mirror that piece that we put on the bottom to save our seam there on the top, and then I'm going to use that to cut into the foam so that the pieces will be separated, but also they'll be aligned. There might be an easier way to do this. This was a solution that worked for me, and that's what it's just about, is just being deliberate and taking your time. And now I can remove those pieces of foam because they're just stuck to the tape. They're not stuck to the aluminum, and they come off very easily. And then once I remove that piece of tape, I have a nice clean line there. And that actually worked very well. So now I'm removing the rest of that tape, and there we have it. So now I just do a test to see how this unscrews and to make sure everything doesn't come apart, and success. It works. Because you never know. This is the first time I was making one of these. And now the beauty shots, right? That looks good. The only thing I did off camera is I just dampened the red in that button. That was a little too bright, so I took that down a notch. That looks like a lightsaber. I mean, if I was walking around with that in my belt, you would think, oh, he's got a lightsaber on.
That was so much fun, and I'm so glad that it worked out. It was something that was rattling around in my head. And I had a pretty good idea that it would work, and I'm so glad that it did. It was so much fun. Now, very important, this is a disclaimer. Before I made this, I did a lot of research about glues, and what I read that was Gorilla brand glue, hot glue. These are all, food safe, right? But I'm just a guy on the internet reading stuff on the internet, so do not take my word for it as far as the glues that you use for this. Do your own research and make your own choices of the glues that you're comfortable with making this. All right, that makes sense, right? And then, this is a prototype. I think this totally works. I could wear this on my belt, go trooping around or whatever, have my beverage of choice on my side. The thing is, as a prototype, I think when I make this again, I want to try to find just a little bit of a thinner aluminum bottle. I've seen online some light beers that I think have a thinner profile bottle. I don't know. I want to find out more about that. And I think, in the original prop, it was actually windshield wiper blades. So I think I might use those and maybe just a button from the hardware store if I wanted it to appear real. But if I'm, just trucking around at a cosplay or at a party or an event, I think that's so much fun. All right, and pretty simple, right? And kind of like a good craft afternoon. Well, only thing left to do now is to fire it up. Oh. Oh. Got a lot of kick. Well, as always, I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to read the comments. And be sure to sign up for the email newsletter. And remember, I'm just here to help make sci-fi. Let's do another one. Ha ha ha!